Here are 7 things I've learned after teaching Spanish professionally for 12 years. I wanted to share them for those of you who are currently studying Spanish and are kind of struggling. Starting with one that many students have a hard time accepting. Studying grammar is extremely helpful. So some language learning methods are deductive and some are inductive. The one that we use at Burgess Institute is more on the deductive side. So what does that mean? When a method is inductive, first we see a lot of examples and eventually we try to infer the patterns from all those examples. When a method is deductive, first you learn the patterns, the grammar rules in this case, and then you apply them. And a deductive method is generally faster. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you are teaching English to someone who doesn't speak English. So in English there's this weird thing. You say, she went to the party, but then you say, she did not go to the party. If English is your first language, you do this automatically and you don't have to think about it, but I have to think about it. And it's kind of a weird construction. For the negative version, instead of saying something like she not went, you are saying she did not go. You are conjugating to do in the past tense and then you are keeping go in the infinitive form. She went, but the negative version, she did not go. When a sentence is negative in the past tense, we no longer conjugate the main verb, we add to do as an auxiliary verb. We conjugate it in the past tense, did, then we add not, and then we add the verb go in infinitive. She went, she did not go. So would your student eventually infer that this is what's happening from looking at lots of examples? Yeah, absolutely. Eventually he or she would. But it's faster if you explain this to them right away. Here's another one, and you probably already knew this one. Consuming content is very helpful. You can watch Netflix shows, you can watch comprehensible input channels on YouTube, etc. All of that is great. Listening to podcasts, it helps you learn vocabulary, it helps you with your pronunciation. So if you're already doing this, I encourage you to keep doing it. If you aren't, I encourage you to start doing it. That said, we need to practice our production skills. What does production mean? So in linguistics, production means writing and speaking, and especially speaking tends to be the hardest part of learning a second language. And usually we don't practice it enough. Like, it's easier and more pleasurable to watch content on Netflix or on YouTube than to actually practice our speaking. But we kind of need to do it. We need to train our brain to speak. Basically, the brain processes for listening and speaking are sort of different, and we have to practice both skills. They are sort of different skills. Sometimes we give the example of recognizing faces versus drawing faces. They are very different skills. So we need to make sure that we practice speaking, that we practice production. And we can do that with our teacher. If we have a teacher, we can do that with a conversation partner, but we can even do that alone. We can do that in our house or in our car, etc. We just need to make sure that we spend time practicing actually saying sentences in the target language, in Spanish in this case. One more, your memory is not the problem. When you're learning Spanish or any other language as a foreign language, you need to memorize a lot of stuff, a lot. So that just takes time, and there's only a certain amount of information that we can memorize every day. As we memorize more and more stuff, it kind of gets easier. Basically having background information in our long-term memory makes our short-term memory more efficient with Spanish or with any other subject. For example, in our school, in Burgess Institute, sometimes we have older people who are retired. And sometimes some of those people complain a lot about their memory, and they say oh, my memory used to be so much better when I was younger. And then a lot of times, since they are retired and they have a lot of free time and a lot of motivation, they are actually progressing way faster than some of the 25-year-olds that are also taking classes with us. So, be easy on yourself. There's a lot to memorize and it takes time. So just take it one day at a time. One more, most people won't be able to sound native ever. I don't sound native in English. I'm sure you've noticed already. And that's okay. Accepting that can actually be a relief. Some people have crazy skills, and sometimes these people are also able to imitate different accents in their native language, and some people are able to sound native in a second language, but that's usually a minority. For a lot of people, that's pretty much impossible if we've learn our second language after a certain age, usually around 11 or 12. So in my case, I just accept that I won't sound native in English, and that's okay. If you're learning Spanish and you don't have those crazy like imitation skills or whatever in which you can sound native already, you probably will never be able to sound native, and that's okay. For example, Joseph Conrad, he wrote all his big novels in English, and apparently he always had like a very thick Polish accent, and you know, his English writing was actually very good. Or for example, in Spain there was the case of Michael Robinson, who was a sports commentator who was English. He worked on TV, like commentating soccer, football matches in Spanish, and he had a very thick English accent, and people kind of liked it, you know, it was kind of charming. And you know, like, he didn't sound native, and he made little mistakes here and there, like the same, like I also make little mistakes here and there in English, and that's fine. So we should just accept that for most of us, sounding native is not an option, and that's okay. One more, this one has like a Stoic philosophy thing to it. So basically, like, the limits of our working memory and our long-term memory, those are real, but frustration is optional. If we don't want to get frustrated, we can just decide that we will not get frustrated, and then we won't be frustrated. That's just a feeling that we kind of create for ourselves, and that it's not necessary. Learning a second language is hard. It will just take a long time. We'll study, we'll eventually get it. Getting frustrated is useless, so we'll just decide to not get frustrated. And the last one, if we want to study in an efficient way, research is very clear. There are two strategies that we can use. Those are spaced repetition and active recall. So what are those things? So spaced repetition means leaving some time between studying sessions or practice sessions. So, you know, it's the classic of like not studying the whole thing one day before the exam, because we will forget everything. It's more like studying in smaller chunks throughout different days, and that helps move the information from our short-term memory, from our working memory, to our long-term memory. And the other one that also achieves the same thing is active recall. So that means kind of like quizzing ourselves about what we've learned, like trying to actively recall from within our brain, you know, the things that we've just learned. And that helps move things from our working memory to our long-term memory. So for doing that, you know, after you learn something, like some vocabulary words or some grammar rules, etc., it's good to just keep thinking about them for a couple of days and try to quiz ourselves about them, even if we don't get it right. So spaced repetition, leaving time between our studying sessions, and active recall, trying to quiz ourselves on the material that we've learned. So that's all I have today. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.